Welcome, one and all. This is the Ancient Journey. On today's journey, the 1976 pandemic. But before we get started, don't forget, if you enjoy the video, please give us a like and a share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on those notifications. And if there's a story out there you'd like to see us turn into a video, drop it in the comments section down below. Now let's get started. History has a way of repeating itself, sometimes with the same result and sometimes with different outcomes. But sometimes history gets memory holed, pushed far away back into the dusty textbooks and yellowed newspapers of the time. In 1918, an Army cook at Camp Funston, Kansas comes down with a severe flu. Within days, there are over 522 men sick at Camp Funston. Just 7 days later, what would come to be known as the Spanish flu pandemic has already made it to Queens, New York. The Spanish flu, a variant of the swine flu, would hit in 4 waves in the United States and would end up infecting a third of the world's population and killed in the neighborhood of 20 million people worldwide. In 1957, an avian flu caused a pandemic that killed an estimated 1 million people in the world and over 100,000 in the United States. In 1968, another avian flu creates a pandemic that kills nearly 100,000 more in the United States. Less than 10 years later, at Fort Dix in New Jersey, several soldiers complain of a severe respiratory illness which base doctors diagnose as the flu. 1 month later, Private David Lewis, who had flu symptoms, participates in a 5-mile march, collapses, and dies. The New Jersey Health Department tests samples from the soldiers, and the majority of the results they obtain are of a common flu strain. 2, however, were not. Those samples get sent to the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, who suddenly begin ringing the alarm bell. Swine flu has been found once again. None of the soldiers had been in contact with pigs, so human transmission is assumed. The CDC announces the findings at a news conference, and then President Gerald Ford suggests an immediate mobilization of resources to create a mass vaccination plan for the United States. Ford goes on television to announce the program, and soon Congress authorizes $135 million for the immunization plan. In April, the company who insured Merck, who was one of the vaccine manufacturers of the time, refuses to offer liability protection for the vaccine. Soon it is learned that the government must extend liability protection to the other vaccine manufacturers as well. Soon the Ford administration floats the idea of indemnity to cover the vaccine manufacturers, meaning they could not be held responsible in the event of an adverse reaction to the vaccine. Vaccine manufacturers have another demand: money. They refuse to sell the vaccines to the government at cost. They demand a profit. A nation on edge waits. In August, an outbreak of illness in Philadelphia is thought to be the deadly swine flu. It turns out to be just another form of pneumonia, but the scare is enough to push both houses of Congress to go along and offer vaccine manufacturers both immunity and their profit margin. Vaccines are approved in September, and soon the first injections are given. As the nation mobilizes, the immunizations become available across the country. In October, 3 people die of heart attacks after receiving the vaccine at the same clinic in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. An investigation shows the deaths were not related to the vaccines. President Ford is vaccinated in front of television cameras shortly after. Newspapers bleat false headlines detailing the deaths in Pittsburgh as being responsible from vaccines. In November, Ford loses the presidential election to Jimmy Carter, and in December, 10 states begin to report of another side effect the vaccine appears to be causing. Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS, is reported at a rate some 4 times higher in vaccinated persons than in those who are not. Soon, GBS is reported in an 11th state. GBS is a rare autoimmune disorder that causes a person's own immune system to attack the body's nervous system, causing weakness and sometimes paralysis. Damage can be permanent. On December 16th, a month-long suspension of the vaccination program is put in place. The program is never reinstated, and it's estimated only 25% of the U.S. population was vaccinated. A study summarizing the problems with the vaccine stated that the vaccine was an overall health benefit, one that outweighed the risk of contracting GBS. In all, around 350 persons out of 45 million vaccinated were shown to have GBS. Today there is little agreement whether there is any relationship between the vaccines and GBS. Furthermore, there is little confidence that the swine flu found at Fort Dix represented anything close to a pandemic that would threaten the world. The New York Times labeled the vaccine program as a sorry example of political expediency and unwarranted confidence, and warned that the idea of any further preventive programs could be discredited because of it. How right they were. So just remember, no matter how bad things seem, we've been here before, and we'll probably be here again. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey.